This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Joining me now is John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to be with you.
Good to be here.
At the beginning of the week. This weekend dominated by protests where we saw peaceful demonstrations, violent demonstrations. We saw police officers walking with demonstrators. We saw them attacking demonstrators. There was a little bit of everything. The bottom line to me is that this George Floyd murder, where this police officer choked to death on video, a black man, a white police officer did this. This is a Rodney King type moment for the country, is it not?
Yeah. This is the level of 68 is the level of Rodney King, and possibly more critical. I mean, it feels like this might actually cause us to think through as a society some of these problems we have in race relations and police relations and police behavior from a mutually sensitive point of view, from the stresses facing our police and also the abuses inflicted on the African American community. So yeah, I mean, I think this is like a moment, or potentially a moment, but I think the massive, peaceful, if angry and resentful protest, the moment they turn to criminality, the moment starts to be lost.
It undermines the credibility.
It simply does.
But there is proof out there that there are people that have infiltrated some of these protests, whether they're too far to the left or far to the right, whatever they are. But we don't have all of the proof yet.
Right.
But there seems to be an element out there that is trying to make sure that the peaceful protests get undermined.
Right. There are people trying to, they see this as an excuse, as cover for whatever their agenda could be, left-wing anarchy or right-wing white supremacy, to try to appropriate legitimate protest and legitimate expression and angry expression, which is perfectly fine, for more disruptive, chaotic purposes. That's what's happening, and that gives everybody. Here's where we can't change things, because when that happens, serious discussion among groups about what we face and what we can do is lost when we can all retreat to our cocoons and say, if you're on the left, well, it's the right-wing extremists, and if you're on the right, well, it's the left-wing extremists, and we're seeing that happening. So things get dismissed because of. I despise extremeness. I just do. It's to blame for nearly everything. And at the state capitol, just here last night, on the bullhorn, the organizers of the protest said, "Do not pay attention when we hear these people are coming." But yet the whole thing in the morning headline is blended into something that loses whatever point it would have. Why are these protesters, with their nonviolent, if very strong, angry, resentful protests, and all that's fine, why they don't go home before the trouble starts? Why they don't separate themselves from criminal behavior is what is the problem.
We see over the weekend President Trump not doing his best to unify the country in the terms of the tweets that have come out. He spoke very limitedly at the space launch about this, and maybe a short press gaggle, but you've seen a lot of tweets from the president over the weekend really blaming the Democrats, blaming the media. We saw violence against the media. We've seen everybody to blame is on the left in the president's eyes here. What's his motivation for this? I mean, it's pretty obvious to me this is going to be campaign rhetoric and campaign tactic to use of force, or to say, again, find a group of people to blame for this, which is maybe not the full truth.
Well, you're asking me to get inside a mercurial, egocentric, troubled mind.
I do this on a very regular basis, ask you to interpret the president for me.
I can only go by what we see, and what we see is a nation in great pain, facing a great challenge, a powerful, important moment and he's on Twitter simply saying what amount to incendiary things about political opponents, media opponents, liberals, Democrats, rather than trying to do what we thought presidents do in these sorts of times, which is lead toward calm and reason and to try to facilitate some sort of conversation and healing. I believe, and I believe he sees everything, even this, in a narrow prism of his popularity and his reelection and his standing, both from a political standpoint, like this could help my reelection, and from an ego standpoint, like this, I look better here because they all the worse they look, but I'm not in his brain, and that's not the. I'm sort of uncomfortable saying what seems to me to be totally obvious, but that's the indications are that this same pattern, that he sees chances to exploit events for personal political gain and his own self elevation.
At the same time,
it indicates it's happening here.
There's an opportunity for Joe Biden to capitalize personally and politically off of a different approach to addressing this situation. So, if you're Joe Biden, what do you do?
Well, you got to do better. You got to be more articulate. You got to be more visible. I've got a column for tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's right, but it's timely, and sometimes that happens because I was very impressed yesterday in a very brief appearance on Meet the Press by U.S. Congresswoman Val Demings, longtime police chief of Orlando. And she gave a very articulate.
I think she was there during the nightclub shooting several years ago.
She was impressive. I mean, she had 2 minutes with Chuck Todd, and she didn't get to go into any depth. But I think her vice presidential consideration has now got a little bit of an arrow up, because she gives. What Biden needs to do is lead, and what he needs to do is talk to people in a way that can try to soothe and heal. And if he has us as running mate, and I'm not endorsing her, I don't know her full story, even though it's quite an interesting biography. But a black woman of progressive politics who has a history as a police chief, who could speak sensitively and with authority to both sides, whether she's his running mate or not, what she might bring to the conversation is the kind of thing a real political leader needs to bring to it, and Biden needs to do that, either through her or with her or on his own. That's what I think the nation is looking for. Somebody come in here and understand why these people are behaving the way they are, and tell us what we can do about it from a position of authority or credibility or experience. That's all I ask of him, and we've not seen it yet.
In the midst of all of this, we have a pandemic around COVID-19. It's raging. It's getting worse in Arkansas. Unemployment spiking nationally as well as here in the state of Arkansas. The president withdraws from the World Health Organization. We talked before we started taping, the Mike Flynn transcript comes out, which just got avalanched in that news there. What next, John?
Well, gosh, I don't know. I'm just telling you. You just went through maybe 3, 4, if not a half dozen banner headlines that are on page 6A. That's an old newspaper term for the people who don't understand banner headlines and paper numbering in newspapers. But of my generation, I think people understand it. I mean, all those are at a time of national health calamity and crisis. The United States, the largest contributor to the World Health Organization, pulls out precipitously because we resent the way they have been behaving toward China, or because the president wants a distraction, and it's not much news. It's an extraordinary time. It's a time beyond anything I could have possibly imagined. And you say, what's going to come next? Here's what I hope comes next: better times. That's all I can hope for. That we can behave and rejoin the world in good causes, and that the people on the street can express themselves as they need to be without criminal behavior. That's what I hope comes next. That's all I can hope for.
Can't get much lower.
Well,
I mean, I don't want to think about it getting much lower. I'll say that it's been tough times to navigate for sure.
it has been, and but you know, are we great or are we not? Can we deal with it? Are our political leaders, can they rise to the occasion? One, I don't think can, but otherwise, can they and will they? And can they lead us and can we follow? And can we take these extremists and these elements that divide for fun, and can we marginalize them in a way they need to be fully marginalized, so the rest of us can try to work this out. That's all.
Yep. All right, he's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to be with you.
Good to be with you.
All right. That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.